My name is Reggie Gibson. I think I wrote my first poem when I was 6 years old. That would be 51 years ago. And I've been doing this long enough to know that I should be better.
So how do you develop your poems? Do you show your work to other people? How do you manage your time to write?
Well, that sounds like a lot of questions.
Kind of
All right. Yes, there are some poems I show to other people. Others I don't necessarily show until I get to speaking them. After I speak them, that tends to work itself into the editing and revision process. There are some things which may cut a bit more close to the bone that I'll take up and I'll show my wife because she is literate but not a poet. So if I want to make sure if this communicates to somebody else who doesn't do this work, she's a person who I typically will take it up with. If it's a piece of hip hop I'm writing, I'll run it past one of my sons, if not both of them. One of my sons does hip hop, so I want to see how it, what flow is to him. How does it sound? Does it meet that connection between sound and sense, to hear how the flow is for him? And I do have a group of friends who sometimes we exchange exercises with each other, and then we'll hear what the other person has to say, so that sort of keeps us connected to not only our work, but to other voices as well. So, yeah.
Thank you for that.
And you talked about managing the time. There are different times a day. It depends on what it is. There's some times when I just don't have the creative power to write something, to bring all that together. But I may have the power and the energy to be able to edit. And there are times when I don't have what it might take to edit effectively, and so that becomes more of a time of intake. So I look at the intake, the editing, the actual production, all of that is part of the poetic craft. So for me, it's about, I guess, at what point am I going to enter which part of what it takes to be a poet. Yeah, sure.
What kind of themes or subjects inspire?
Well, I do a fair amount of stuff for clients and for organizations. So it could be various things, right? At present, I'm working, finished up a text that has to do with the disasters that result from multiple hazards related to climate change. And so that is working in conjunction with the Red Cross, Red Crescent, and a group that is out of Ireland that also does a lot of work with that. And the individual who I'm filming it with, I'm filming it tomorrow, he lives in Maine. So that was something that was specifically contracted to talk about those particular issues, right? So that has to do with that. But then there's also the stuff I write for students, as I'm trying to give them example poems of things we might want to write. But lately, I've been doing a lot of stuff with music because I work with musicians. I teach at Berklee College of Music. So I work a lot with musicians, so my work has taken on more of a musical bent. But I also teach at Clark University, and in that class we work a lot with more classical material that have to do with maybe ancient Rome, ancient Greece, and also poetic techniques from those cultures. That I read growing up, well, Dr. Seuss is probably the greatest hip-hop poet ever. I mean, you want to talk about mad skills and flow. The first person to sort of really reach me with it was Edgar Allan Poe. It's interesting because that also was a time when I was getting into hip-hop, and Poe drops some bars, of course, The Raven. As I grew older and older, I started getting more and more into the poets of African-American culture and discovered a group called the Last Poets, along with Leroy Jones, who became Amiri Baraka, who became Imamu Amiri Baraka. Started listening to some of more and more of that work. Moved, and now the person who I constantly go back to is Pablo Neruda, who's a Chilean poet. And one of the things about Neruda is that I said is, he's a poet who first made me want to put the pen down, because I can't do that, and then pick it back up. right? And so he's the person who I remember having that kind of effect on me. So I frequently return to him. And lately, I've been looking at Sonia Sanchez's work, who was part of what they call the Black Arts Movement. But she wrote very broadly and widely, and her work is always, always spiritual and humane. And I find that combination to me very inspiring. Don't listen to anybody's advice. You know, this is, don't believe in inspiration. That can be the death of you, right? We have this belief that, you know, somehow the clouds are supposed to part and pop a poem inside our head, and not the realization that it's actual work. You know, you have to seek inspiration. Don't be some lazy sponge waiting for the world to come along and soak into you. Go out and meet it, right? That you can't run on your own fuel. You have to go read. And if reading's not your thing because of whatever issues you might have, you got to go listen, right? And that above all, it's not just about, I would say, our own experience, but I think a poet is probably best serving their selves when they see themselves as taxonomists of human experience, right? You know, that we document how this curious bipedal species living on this blue-green stone, hurtling through the impossible blackness, how it is that we do this, how it is that we do this inhalation, exhalation thing, and ultimately maybe give us one more reason to keep on doing it. So your job is to, I guess, recognize that you have the whole of human history as your inspiration, that you need to go out there and seek it and see what others have written about it. And don't be so self-satisfied, you know, with something that you came up with. Ask yourself, what else could it be? Which is asking yourself, what else could you be?
Okay. So I'm Hope Fernandez, and I'm here to interview Reggie Gibson. Reggie, my first question is, what early experience taught you the language of poetry and power?
My great-granddad, Robert Jordan, Mississippi, he was a railroad worker, and he was the person who would make up and sing the songs as people were hitting the spikes on the railroad. He was illiterate, which I did not know, but he was the storyteller and the singer in the family. And I came to understand later that he was illiterate. I didn't know that at the time, as I said, but that he was using story and song as devices for him to have gateway to memory, so that he could remember things. And a song that he made up, that he sang, we used to hear him singing it in the kitchen as he was making breakfast. I am working now, all day long, Lord. Here comes the sun, traveling tracks of sky. Oh, Lord, right? And we would hear that. And later on, I came to sort of realize what my great-granddad was doing, right? He was making a comparison between the sun that he saw every morning rising and the light of the train he saw coming down the track, right? So he was doing a metaphor. And but he was also looking at the sun as a track, traveling up the track of sky, again, using metaphor. And I can go back to him now, if I could jeter back to that time and say, well, you know, Granddad, what you were actually doing was creating metaphor. And blah, blah. But for him, it was something that was just coming out of his spirit. It was a natural thing for him to be able to do that. And that song meant something to him. It meant something to the men who worked on the railroad. It meant something to me because it's still within me as I grow up, that my great-grandfather was doing poetry. He wasn't being poetic in that sense, but he was, because he was living it. And it was a way that was connecting him to life and experience and what it meant to be him living in the world.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Well, we get grandpa's one influence.
Great-grandpa.
Great-grandpa,
Sorry if I said grandfather.
How long did it take you to begin sharing your work?
I shared my work with my mother when I was younger, you know, and, you know, that was all fun and games until I started writing stuff she couldn't wrap her religious mind around. Mm-hmm. So I would say I probably shared my first poem when I was 6 with my mom. It was about raking yards and cleaning chimneys, neither of which we had on the west side of Chicago. But I think I grew up on a lot of like Charles Dickens or whatever. And And I remember when I went to my mom and I showed her a piece of something I had written that had taken certain passages out of the Bible and mixed it with passages of science fiction. And my mother freaked out. And that for me was the first time I really recognized. I tore the poem up because I scared my mom. The piece was like, I was like 11 years old. It was 8 pages of rhyme. And my mother got so scared I tore it up. And then it hit me, wow, I just scared my mom, right? And so that's the first person I shared it with. And then at that time, hip hop was becoming a thing later on, which meant if you wrote it, right, you had to say something. You had to share it, right? So you put it out there as a way to see if you had anything to offer. And so that became a way of sharing. But you know, it was a very male, 4/4 time bravado, I'm better than you, you know, I'm putting my rhetorical fists out there to see if you can combat, you know. And then later on, began to share more of the stuff that was more interior. It was the women, I think, in my life. Most of my best friends have been women in my life who I think gave me more of permission, you know, to sort of share the stuff that I couldn't exactly put into hip hop and I couldn't put out there for other dudes to hear.
So my final question.
Sure.
What's one question you wish an interviewer would ask you?
One question I wish an interviewer would ask me. Well, I would say if I'm going by something that has hardly, I guess, ever sort of been asked, I think it would probably be the connections between religion and poetry, right? I don't think I've spoken enough about that, and I'm not sure all of what I think about it, right? But if I was to sort of come up with it now, I guess I'm wrestling with that because I'm not a particularly religious individual, right? And the thing that I sense though is when there is a metaphor, when there's a simile, when there is a connection that's being made, maybe it stirs something in me that those who consider themselves truly religious understand, right? Maybe that's what it is, but I can't say, and but I suspect, and I think I'd like to be able to have conversations with people around that feeling without it becoming sectarian, without it becoming strictly, you know, about, well, that feeling's God, and I can say, well, I don't know that, you know, and then they're not having it veer off into a space where I'm telling them that what they feel is wrong, and they're trying to contextualize the thing that I have, which has no name for as of yet.
Right.
Telling me what it is, right? So I wish I could have those conversations and be asked questions in that context that actually makes me think a little deeper, and I feel that whatever I come up with would be accepted.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Sure, thank you all. Appreciate this.
Yes. So I have with me Sophia Muhammad, a student at New Heights Charter School, who surprised and amazed me during a spring poetry reading last spring, and I've wanted to get to know her. I'm not fortunate enough to be her teacher, so I'm very excited to interview her today. Sophia, when did you first realize you wanted to write poetry?
So for my love of poetry, it was something that came like as a surprise to me personally because I'm a singer. I love singing, I love listening to poetry, and I love just putting words into song. That was something that I loved as a passion. Until as like I'm reading lyrics, as I'm actually starting to like say, hey, this is what I want to do as a person, I noticed that poetry actually has a big part in song. It actually has a big part to play in like the musical history. So when I realized that how much word can move the person, how much words can move the person as much as a song can, I wanted to try and see if I can do that as well, as try and move people, try and inspire people. From a young age, it's hard to, because when you see a face as a young person, most people would disregard it. Most people would say that you don't know what you're talking about. But being able to actually sit here and have people listen to what I say, have people take in what I'm trying to bring to the table, it's something that is beautiful, especially when you're young and all you want to do is just have your voice heard.
So when I was your age, I wrote a lot of poetry, but I didn't share it with my family. Do you share your poetry with your family, and how do they feel about it if you do?
So, I'll be real, most of my poetry is kept aside, and mostly for myself or for events such as this, because the poetry that I write is one that truly touches the heart, truly speaks as if the words are another version of myself. So when it comes to reciting poetry, my poetry for my family, I really have to choose between whether I am ready to have a talk about it or if this will be something that they will just compliment me on and there will be no questions asked. Because it's hard, you know, as a child, yes, if you have something that concerns your child, if I was a mother and my daughter had something that concerned me a little, yes, I would ask questions. However, sometimes the daughter or the child just wants to share without any questions asked, without any pushback, without any sense of this isn't acceptable, you know? So it's really a pick and choose kind of situation. I have to delegate it as if I'm going to interrogate the poet.
Okay. That's powerful. What are the most surprising emotions that come from you in your poetry?
It's like a feeling where you feel as if your heart is trying to give you a hug, almost. As if you feel as if you can relate to it or you can see your daughter within my eyes. That's what I want to do. I want to bring like the youth of teenagers into my poetry, and I want to say that out loud. And when that happens, I want the people who are listening to be like, damn, I need a hug right now. That's what I want from my poetry. So the biggest emotions, probably shock, a sense of reflection, and hopefully happiness.
Great. Do you have a question you wish an interviewer would ask you?
A question that I wish an interviewer would ask me is probably, how is it being a young teenager and trying to delegate many parts of your life at once as a poet? And do you feel as if it's too much? And I'd say no. Yes, there are some times where I feel as if I am putting too much on myself, as any teenager would. However, I have dreams, I have goals, and I am determined. And no matter what, whether it takes anything, I will get my dreams across the floor, and I will persevere and push through. So that's my answer for that one.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing all of which you bring to the table today and moving forward.
Thank you.
Welcome to our second Everyone Has a Voice series at your local library. A special thank you to Philip Hassours, our Brockton Poet Laureate, and Paul Lingle for supporting the art of poetry and giving us this space. I'm Hope Fernandez, educator, educational leader, more importantly, a poet. Today, I am your queen of ceremonies. Our order of event, we'll do open mic. We have 2 feature poets, and without any further interruption, Matt Rosenthal.
I'll take it. All right. So this is called The Ghostly Voice of Ancient Forests. We were the bond between earth and sky. Our days and nights were seasons. At our core, you could count the years in shaven, whitened circles. Branch, trunk, root, and seed were all felled to timber. The ground was cleared of our presence and rebuilt with the bones of our dead. Once we were a mass of one, who will remember the hallowed woods? Yet we are dead, and earth has not reclaimed us, but we still live in these and other pages. This is called Trap. The fish is coming up for air. The depths below are just an illusion of his tail. The lobster waves his claws in envy from the bottom. Catch and don't release. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. And next up, we have Sam Libby.
Okay, this poem comes with a strong language warning. Is that allowed? Okay. And I know that normally you don't introduce a poem, you just read it. But I do want to put forth just one thing, which was I wrote this 7 years ago, 8 years ago now, okay? In 2016, when I thought just grab him by the pussy would actually mean something. So 7 years ago, I wrote, 8 years ago, fuck you, Donald Trump. It used to be the good old days of the good old boys, of my way or the highway, of fall in or you're out. Roles were carved out of skin and bone, gender and tradition. If you were a white man, you knew where you stood. You lived the American dream. The world was your oyster. Now, these uppity bitches want equality. They want hands off, don't even look, let alone touch. And they want our money. They even want more than they deserve, more than they are worth. They no longer know their place, and we are fucking pissed. These days it's his and hers way, or his and his way, or hers and hers way. There are so many ways, too many. It used to be simple. Now everyone wants equality. Everyone wants our money. It's a goddamn rainbow disaster out there. Unisex bathrooms, women nursing babies in public. We were raised on formula. We don't want to look at those tits unless they are unused, unless they are for us. And have you seen teenage girls these days? They are fucking hot. We want some of that, but no. Parents are letting their gay kids be gay. Transgendered people can walk outside without fear of being fired or harassment or murder. This shit is out of control. Now they're talking gun control and prison reform, tax the wealthy, feed the poor. Whatever happened to every man for himself? Whatever happened to pull yourself up by your bootstraps? What happened to all you can eat slices of the pie? What happened to take what you want, fuck the consequences? There used to be no consequences. Women who spoke up, maybe relocation, demotion, termination. Touch all you want has turned into look but don't touch, has turned into tone and texture and hostile work environment, along with are you tapping that? And why not? And bro, she wants you. And dude, she's asking for it. There used to be no proof. Now it's on Twitter and Snapchat, ghosts and consequences popping up all over the place. It's an old boys network whack-a-mole, and this shit is getting real and fast, and we can't keep it up. They want equal rights, they want equal pay, they want equal respect, and not only do they want it, it's no longer up to us. It's no longer grab and go pussy. It's no longer on your knees, bitch. It's no longer who the fuck do you think you are? We know who we are. And the thing that pisses you off the most, I think, is this shit, our shit, is no longer yours. You can't demand it because you want it, because you think you bought it, because you finally put a fucking ring on it, because, baby, come on, you know just how I like it. We don't even want what you have. We just want our own shit, our own pie, our own fucking table. We'll give you seats, but we are done with the old way. We want to say no only once. We want decent sex, not just any sex. We want orgasms, every time. We want money, more money. It's not your money, it's our money. We deserve it, we've earned it, we're entitled to it. But that's not all. We want community, we want kindness, we want acceptance, we want love, we want family and paid family leave. We want our sons and daughters to never have to hear, "On your knees, bitch," or "my way or the highway," or, "You know, she was just lying there behind a dumpster." We want you to stand up and be men. We want you to sit down at the table and listen. We want you on your knees in gratitude for birthing the future.
Wow, okay. And next up, Philip Hassours.
Elegy for my father, muscle, bone, sinew. I am in the true year of my life. Clouds swivel through a blue shimmering reflection of thought. The sand, white and hot, burns in afternoon solace. As the cool, soft offshore breeze leaves traces imprinted within centuries, awaiting the tender steps that will bring the man, old and tired, weary from his travels. Hand spreads against the beaten brow, searching for prayers. They will embrace each other, old friends, old enemies, distant lovers. Kiss lips too light, muscle, bone, sinew. Blood thicker than water's depth. In the distant shadow light, house beaming, unwavering bright, sky, heaven serene, no harm will come. Gulls hang, then glide to the unanswered wave. Voices mislaid, long forgotten, give way to the balance of the horizon, a maze absorbed in azure blue. Reconciliation. Turn towards the greeting silhouette of life, surrounded by memories, muddled undertow, blood thicker than the shallows. Tender steps imprinted within our collective reflections, contained by centuries of water edging toward, a grasping, a letting go, then a whisper, a hint, a murmur. Nightfall awakens in the mist that clings as water laps footprints, leaving remnants, the struggle of intimacy, old friends, old enemies, distant lovers, kiss lips for flight. The father to the son, sinew, bone, muscle. The son to the father, muscle, bone, sinew. Memory be eternal. So with that poem, last year I did some traveling, and I was fortunate enough to go to Greece, where my father was born. And I got to go to the beach where he swam, and it was quite an experience. But in order to get to the beach, you had to climb down 104 stairs. And they weren't regular stairs, they were 3 feet long. So although it was 104 stairs, I couldn't count the steps. So, but this is the poem I wrote about that experience. 104 stairs to Seralia. The steps that lead you down to your origin, the carved remains of footprints etched by each generation, pebbles and stones protrude out of necessity, cracks exposed from nature's age, weather beaten, a reflection of our humanity. Echoes arise. We are here. Let us guide you to the water, where with each tumbling wave that laps the shore, the white foam releases its energy, tides changing with the faces of moon. Dawn awakens, casting off its night skin. Air's grayness mingles in the self-belief of origin. The age of the stone leads to wisdom, unfolding our stories of triumphs, lamenting our sorrow of misfortunes, and stronger together we became family. The stone steps that lead upward, the curvature of the climb, the legs of the journey heavy. The heart beats and beats as you push on for skyward. The blue mirrors the origin of blue water, and the calmness wraps around you. Ancestors that brought you here to this place in this moment swaddles you into blankets of clouds. Dreams form as hands cup moments. You are released into the essence of the body. Waiting arms hold, lie across family earth, drawing breath, bathe in the balance of life. So I have one more poem, and earlier there was a great conversations about religion and poetry. Let me see. Here we go. So again, oops. It's not working. Go this way. Tell me, John. I stood by the water where John rested, waiting to hear the words of wisdom. My soul empties. I cannot see into the future. Last chance for a miracle. Step right up and be submerged, and let our sins be washed away. Souvenirs guide the way. The closer we get, the more the cost. What price do we pay for our salvation? Tell me, John, who is saved when all our sins are washed away? Standing at the mountaintop, hands raised above the horizon, I fold into prayer my soul in repentance. The sun and moon share the sky. Reflections collide. Rivers converge into the bedrock. Scars reopen. The heart is left beaten. The red dawn of the morning bleeds into tears that replenish the dry ground of sorrow. The veins of temptation cut deep, sowing what is lost. Tell me, John, when is transgression forgiven? Come and ride the beast of burden who carries the weight we could never accept. The wait for forgiveness continues, the uncertain void we could never bear. Tell me, John, who is saved when the beast stumbles? Bring him here to the water's edge. Let him rest upon our shoulders. Let him drink from the tears that fall from the shadows of our hearts. Then lay with him by the calm waters as they rise and cradle the psalms that comforts us in time of need. Let droplets of forgiveness baptize. Listen to voices resilient, rippling infinite, rippling infinite. Last chance for a miracle. Step right up to be submerged. Tell me, John, who is saved when all our sins do not wash away? Body broken, accepted by the bread and wine of the light. Seek the teacher that dwells in the house of your conscience. So it is my great pleasure to introduce our host for the afternoon, Hope Fernandez.
Thank you. So, I don't know if anyone's ever read Jason Reynolds, but I started reading him. He's a young adult author, reading him last year, and I've read every single book he wrote, and his newest book came out, and I read it in 4 hours, and I'm trying to work it out into a poem about how this YA author has captured me. So this is for Jason Reynolds. In your words, each sentence sharp as breath. There are boys, black as the sky after rain, their hands soft as earth turned for the first time, their eyes unbroken by what the world hurls at them. You strip the noise down to the bone, simple truths and simple sentences. You see them, not as fractured things, not as stories shaped by bruises or the weight of what they carry, but as they are, whole, beautiful, brown and tender, their laughter echoing like birds through summer trees. You show us what others refuse to see. No need for the jagged glass of trauma or the heavy fists of struggle to make their lives worthy of reading. Your words hold them up, gentle as hands that cup water, showing that they too want to be loved, not for what they have survived, but for the quiet in their hearts, the softness they carry like a secret in their pockets. They are not ghosts of tragedy, but sons of joy, boys whose feet kiss the ground like poetry. And this one is for my students as I grapple with them in a good way. Children of sky and dream, they rise, children of open skies, untethered, their dreams outgrowing the moon, stretching past stars, past what they know, past what we know. Their hands tremble with possibility, small fingers tracing the edge of constellations, hearts full of something bright, something they can't name, but feel burning inside like suns. They are unaware of their own weight, how the ground calls them, how roots matter when you drift too far. But they don't hear. They float, wild and free, on wings made of ambition and something fragile. Wings that glow but threaten to break. Their minds still shaped by storms they didn't ask for, carrying a quiet ache, a whisper of winds they've survived, yet in them there is light, an unshaken light. They dream in galaxies and color we can't see. They stretch beyond boundaries, but don't yet know how to build homes from the stars they pluck, how to find ground without falling. Still, in every heartbeat, there is love waiting to unfold. There is joy, an ember glowing in the spaces they can't yet fill. We stand below, hands open, hoping to teach them how to stay aloof without losing themselves in the wind. Thank you. So, without any hesitation, we have our featured poet, Reggie Gibson. He's a literary performer, has lectured and performed widely in the US, Cuba, and Europe, representing the US in Italy. Reggie competed for and received both the Absolute Poetry Award in, I'm going to say this wrong, Monfalcone, in Europe, in Visa Award in LaGuardia de Como. He is an actor, creator of the Shakespeare Time-Traveling Speakeasy, a theatrical literary concert featured on the life and works of William Shakespeare. He serves on the board of New England Poetry Club and Grub Street Writers and Teachers at Clark University. Welcome.
Thank you, Hope. To the me I did not become. You did not get that dictionary at age 7. You never said the word bored in Mr. Green's 5th grade class, and thus avoided his verbal thumping that beat your aggressive disinterest into embarrassment, leading to feigned curiosity, leading to revelation, leading to intellectual defiance. So you did what was asked and got out of high school on time, didn't endure the humiliation of staying another year and graduating in summer school. You remained in your mother's religion, turned your back on science and facts, found yourself happy with her approval, and became an elder in her church. You found you have no need of philosophy. When the TV you got after your father's funeral stopped working, you went and got another, bigger, better, and you never returned to that book, the one you never found in your 5th year of high school, the one that never cracked your head open and let the light in. You are a great mechanic. Cars whisper their woes to you, and so books don't call you between tire rotations and tune-ups. You never return to words. Or perhaps you did in some other way and became that lawyer your dad wanted you to be. Perhaps you now have a bit more money and a home in Chicago and are married to another version of Stephanie Miller. Maybe your versions are better to each other than ours are. Perhaps the two of you are still in love. Perhaps you are merely pretending to be. Perhaps that is enough for you. Do you think of me sometimes and feel as I do? A little regretful, a little relieved, slightly guided, strangely smiled upon. How to become an ex-Jehovah's Witness without losing your mind. First, you must overcome your Pavlovian desire to knock on doors. Then you must sever the Methodist drone from your tongue, curse its funkless inflection, imbibe an Africanized gospel, and learn to fear any church that fears drums. Hallow the mouth to devil sputter. Beat God like he stole someone from you. Pummel him until all that remains is unthunderous pulp and question. Lean that question's heft on your mother's prayers until you hear it snap like a dry clavicle. War into her face. Dare her to pray for you again. Forgive her though she does. Forgive her though she lies. Forgive her. Your name will change. It will be Iscariot, apostate, worldly backslider, kingdom unworthy. Your mark will be that of Cain and of beast. Only take lovers who can burn the Christ you were given, then only take lovers who love only ash. Learn to purgatory, learn how to holy like a fist, learn to move through the broken church of this world like a pissed off priest wearing combat boots. Then close one eye, bless every back now turned to you. Then look at your hands and wait for the burning. Wait for the holes to appear, holes just large enough for your fingers to doubt through. So how's everybody doing? That was continuing in many ways in the religious vein that we mentioned earlier and also Philip spoke of, and very important conversations to have about religion and also politics. And there are many in this country who see politics as a sort of religion, and they mix their religion and their politics. And there is a certain political individual who is talking about what it means to be a great American, and in fact, saying that we need to make our country what great Americans want it to be. So there's a group of individuals who are also listening to this person, one of which is my father-in-law. My father-in-law, his family came over from Ireland in the early 20th century, late 19th century, and they came over as immigrants, dirt poor. And when a political individual who they tend to follow speaks about immigration, my father-in-law, very Irish Catholic man, can be seen as amening this. And then there needs to be some reminding for him. And to that, this. Imagine for a minute you're an indigent immigrant, a refugee seeking a safe place to be. You traverse over the earth, sand, sod, and sea in search of a turf that'll simply let you breathe. Then you arrive at a place that is claiming to be the land of peace, freedom, justice, and opportunity, but when you get to the gates, what it is you see is a bunch of great Americans yelling, "You've got to leave." Now, what I say next might get many who I love upset, but some Americans I know come off as hypocrites. Some Americans I know, well, they seem to forget that some of them are the descendants of indigent immigrants. Some forget how their ancestors fled anti-Semitism. Others how their ancestors fled from potato famine. Others how their ancestors fled the dictator's cannon. Now some of them act if they cannot imagine what it must be like to decide to take flight from your home and your country because you fear for the lives of your family worn by war's tragedy, political insanity, or unforeseen calamity. Think about it. Where would you be if others had just callously sent your ancestors back into that hellish brutality instead of extending the open hand of humanity? Is that the America that you want us to be? Each refugee is a child, see, needing to be nurtured into full maturity. And there's an inscription written on a pedestal where a woman stands. And if you look closely in seeing and read along, you see it says, "Give me your poor and your tired, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shores, send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me." These words, written by the descendants of Jewish immigrants, seem to me to make something ring that's quite evident. Offering a refugee a safe place of residence is what it means to really be and not simply say you're a great American. Thank you. So my wife is, she was raised as Irish Catholic, and as a result, you know, she came up in the American way of doing things, and she embraced Halloween early, and she asked me when we first got married if I would write a Halloween piece to tell the students, the kids in the neighborhood, a sort of ghost story. And so I didn't really have any because I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness. We just didn't celebrate that, right? So I had to make one up, and I started going back into a time when I was younger, and there was this woman who walked down the street, and she scared everybody. And she was a person who nobody really messed with, and there was all this lore that grew up around her. And most of the people who were in my neighborhood had come up from the South. And so there was all of this other sort of voodoo conjure stuff that happened. And as I grew more and started to look into different religions and understand what they were communicating, there was a personage from out of the western Nigeria, the pantheon, called Oya, who is the goddess of storms, and she is a mighty woman warrior who is the only thing in existence that Shango, this quintessential archetypal male figure, will not mess with. And so this is sort of an interplay with that. Oya. Cats around here say she one of the few folks in the hood who came up from the South. Say she from Mississippi or Georgia or something like that. They say she a preacher woman, a real fire and brimstone bride of Jesus. Some folks say she got the touch. They say at this one Sunday night, at this used to be church she used to be the pastor at, that she was doing some healing and rebuking and casting out demons. And that's when something got into her. No, what they say is that's when something got into her. That's when her left eye went blood red and she just walked out the church and never came back, never spoke another word to nobody. At least nobody could see. Just about everybody who remembered that day is gone now, and the few left won't even tell nobody her name. It's like they all made some pact with each other to not speak about her, except to warn the young bloods to stay as far away from her as possible. Well, when she come walking down the block, mumbling to herself, pushing that squeaky old shopping cart with all them old bottles, doll heads, and rats up in it, everybody just get out of her way. Me? Man, I get my black ass all the way on the other side of the street. Because, bruh, they say if she even look at you with that blood eye of hers, it means something coming to you by the end of the week. Now, you can laugh if you want to, but there's some cats I know ain't got no respect for their mamas who won't even look cross-eyed in her direction. I mean, go ahead, chuckle if you got it. But I'm saying, there was this one cat, T-Bone, this thug brother from around the projects, right, tried to show his ass in front of his boys by running down the street after she passed, screaming all about how he don't get no damn about some old dry witch with no teeth, no hair, one eye, and a shopping cart full of rats and other people's shit. Well, man, she turned around, put that eye on him, got to speaking in this kind of language I ain't never heard since and ain't trying to hear now. And then she just walked away. Squeaked on down the street. And T-Bone just stood there laughing. And we walked up to him, man, was like, man, what you doing? He says, oh, man, I don't care about that. So get this, next day, right, we out on the basketball court playing. I'm about to go for this layup, you dig? And what we see this rat, crippled, walking down the street. So we go follow the thing. Man, look. That thing walked itself all the way down to T-Bone and his mom and him crib, right? Went out, somehow got up 9 flights of stairs, made a right at Jomo's house, a left at Keisha's door, went down the street from Dre's, and wound up dying right there in front of T-Bone and his mom and him house. Coincidence? My ass. Next day we saw T-Bone. We told him, yo, man, you need to go and apologize to that old lady, man. She put something on you. And even his mama came to him and says, T-Bone, now I know you don't believe in all the old tales, but you need to go and you need to talk to that old lady. You need to make this right. He laughed at all of us and says, man, I don't care nothing about that old spook and demon stuff. Y'all can believe in that if you want to, but I ain't down with that. 2 days later, T-Bone fell out the window of his mom's apartment. Man, you know that brother was laying and moaning in that vacant lot behind that building for 5 hours before his brother found him. And when he did find T-Bone, T-Bone's spine was broken 2 places, his jaw was shattered to powder, and his bottom lip looked like somebody had been nibbling away at it. Now, you would have thought that brother would have died, right? And if you ask me, had him fallen out that window been an act of God, he would have. But Now, he crippled from the neck down. Can't wipe himself, can't talk, and doctors say he's going to be that way for the rest of his life. Every now and then, you can still see his mama rolling him round in that squeaky wheelchair, him looking like a cadaver on wheels, drooling down the front of his shirt. And if you lean in real close to that scar that used to be his mouth, you can hear him whispering about rats, graves, and mercy. That is a 97% true story with 3% poetic glue holding it together. I was talking to a friend earlier today, Sam, who you heard read, and we were talking about writing and things that we write that may or may not go somewhere. We don't know what's up with it. Well, I've been working every now and then with a group of poets. We say, you know, we poets always use cliches, right? What happens if we just go like straight into it? We just say, all right, well, let's just see what we can do with cliches and see what what kind of fun we can have with it. So here's a few pieces on that. This is called The Remix, Nostalgic Phrases, Stuff Your Parents and Grandparents Always Said. Now just hold your heavens there, Betsy. No need to cry out loud over spilt milkmaids wearing the cat's pajamas, because, well, somewhere there's a sleeping cat lying naked as the bee's knees. Better to keep your chowder dry than to drain like cats and dogs. Heaven forfend. If you want more out of life, then don't just get along, go along. Your face will please that way. I mean, you'll never know who you can do unless you lie. You may not be any better than anyone else, but at least you may be worse. Take it from me. Experience is the best teacher. But even a fool can learn it's always darkest before it really gets dark. So sit and shine and rise up straight, for the good Lord never gives us more than we can bear to feed a cold. And even though you can stick your finger in the same dike twice, don't. But if you must, remember that tomorrow is another bidet. And then here's a little sick and twisted advice. When it comes to love, know this, that the love of money is the root of all people. Actions speak louder than turds, and two songs can fake a right. You know, if it ain't broke, it's probably too little too late. Women who live in glass blouses should never say never, and usually don't. But if the shoe fits, bear it. For no matter how you nice it, it takes two to mangle, for misery loves the company of a bird in the hand. And though some people only hurt the ones they love, others only love the buns they hurt. But above all, remember to be true to thy selfishness, that laughter is the best way of throwing stones. And if you love someone, I mean really love someone, set them on fire. And if they return, run like hell, because they usually come back heavily armed. And the last one in that vein. The heart is one of those things we poets always go back to, right? And this is a direct address to it. Dear heart, even though you are so stupidly dull, even though you are the only muscle with a voice, and you keep saying the same shit over and over and over and over, even though you are like my father, who has only worked one job his entire life and thought he had the right to tell me how to live, and even though, just like him, your track record in the advice-giving department ain't been so great, I love you as war loves weeping. I loathe you as glass loathes shatter. I love and loathe how you falter at the never-ending arithmetic of bullets and children. For this haunting hurt you have for Trojan women sold into an ancient slavery. For your disbelief of the unreturned compassion Saladin gave his Christian captives. For Jews forced into conversion and name change. For Palestinian bellies empty of bread. Why do you sigh for the unmoved dust gathering on unopened books of poems? For every word not said by people who are always, always sad. People songless and silent as pianos with missing teeth. Why are you so easily broken open by broken mothers who've been broken closed? Don't you know, lonely one, no one wants to hear you at night, sobbing yourself bloodless like some soldier that cannot cry himself clean. Dear, too easily wounded heart, if you continue to crack for each injustice you are powerless to stop, for every mythic hero you cannot and could not ever be, for every history of everything you cannot fix, comfort, or soothe, what will become of you? You, my stupid, stupid, beautiful you. A couple more, then I'll be out of your hair. This is one that I wrote with my wife in mind. And it is, I would say, a different kind of love poem. As I said, my wife and I, we have very different trajectories that brought us into the same place. She is in such a position that she was asked in high school, so what college are you planning on going to? I come from a place where we were asked, so do you think you're going to graduate high school? My wife grew up, had to walk 3 blocks to get a high school education at Lexington High School. I had to go 45 minutes to an hour through 3 gang territories to get a high school education. My wife grew up feeling poor because they only had one home in Lexington and another home they got away to in the summer in Maine. I grew up feeling poor because we were, and we had a 3-bedroom apartment on the west side of Chicago. But somehow we find ourselves in the same space, and we're raising children. And let's just say that those vast differences of where we come from affected also how we raise our kids. Now, I've realized that who she is something I can never be. What I am is something she can never be, but maybe we can have a bigger and better understanding of each other. So this is primarily written to her, who has told me that I should read this piece. Black fathers. To be a black father is to fear you will outlive your children. It is to know your sons will be mistaken for guns. It is to want to cut the hoods off of their hoodies and rip the do-rags from their skulls. Black fathers know their daughters, no matter how formidable their intellects, still need to hear them say they are beautiful, that they are loved in a world that hates their skin, a world that tells them to keep their thick lips tucked in. Black fathers are too aware of how history haunts this country, that it is a specter so terrifying to look at that most whites won't. So he watches them as they run from and deny it, hide inside of a frail patriotic nostalgia and a fragile misremembrance. Now, turn your eyes to the black father and his unblack wife during a traffic stop. Know that he feels the overseer's whip lashing behind the cop's eyes and can see the words nigger and nigger lover burning on his tongue like a flaming cross. See the black father tell his children not to move as he keeps looking at the officer's weapon-petting hand, stroking the gun handle as though it were a dog, frothing at the mouth, straining in anticipation of being unleashed on the threat the black father's advanced degree and educated diction cannot quite keep him from having become. Listen to how carefully the black father announces his intentions, how measured his voice as he over-enunciates every action that will cause his hands to leave the steering wheel. Now look at how his white and Asian friends' eyes dart nervously at each other when he tells them about this over rye Manhattan cocktails and well-crafted IPAs. Know that it is times like this the black father seeks the solace of black music, needs to crawl inside some sound that both understands and accepts his tears like a grandmother's all-knowing bosom. This is when the black father gives jazz to his children, exhausts himself telling them that it is a metaphor for how they must live, how they must improvise on the tune they were given, and how, when they dance, their black feet must never miss a beat, for there are those out there trying to trip them up, only to find them guilty of their own falling. Listen as the black father guides his children through the alto ache of the gospel singer's voice, stitches for them the story of how it was birthed from Middle Passage and slave ship, manacle, rape, and auction block, and Jesus. Hear how his voice cracks as he tells them how he hates that he still loves and treasures that broken beatitude, even though it bends toward a heaven he no longer prays to and praises a God of chains he now devoutly doubts. Black fathers, watch out for which well-meaning middle-class white feminist values will get in the way of raising black sons. Watch out for which ones say to them that they are what's wrong with this world because everything's wrong inside of their woolly heads, while all the while black fathers watch as white mothers raise white sons that grind black bones to make white bread. Black fathers are always anxious about being wrongly incarcerated, absent, dead. To be a black father is to live like two bruised fists, to have it taken that you, as a given, you do not exist. It is to be looked over and looked over. It is to never worry about being overestimated or of getting too much rest at all because, well, you learn to sleep with one eye open when history has your back against the wall. And I'll read, thank you, one more, and then I'll be out of your weave. And this one is for, if I can find it, it's for Sophia. And young folk, I think if I can find it. Yes, here it is. I try not to give advice, but what I think sometimes we folks who are just a bit more sort of down the road, we look back and we think about what's important, and we try to tell young folks like Sophia to not overlook what's important. This is a bit of a twist on advice from William Shakespeare, who has a character named Jaques in the play As You Like It. He was a rather dour figure who goes on talking about how all this world is a stage. And he gives some advice of how to look at it, which is kind of sad, but that's folded up into here. All your life's a stage. All your life is a stage, young person. And you sisters and brothers, you in-betweens and others, have your exits and your entrances, your various performances, and in fits and starts will play many parts. First, you come onto the scene, writhing and screaming, nearly blind and dumb, drooling through toothless gums, mewling and puking in the nurse's arms. This time is now lost to you, and you cannot recall any of it at all. You were innocent and ignorant of screed, scroll, and scripture. But before you know it, you were hit with a torrent of facts and figures, indoctrinated by these bigger critters who give you the rules of both school and home, who tell you on which side of what line it is you belong. And so you begin. You begin dividing the world into them and theys and thatses and thises, hims and hers, misters and misses, and just when you think you got the whole thing down pat, you discover the thunderous bliss of kisses. And that just messes up everything. For how can so small and seemingly meaningless a thing bring you to a place where you find you are displaced of gravity, floating, eyes closed, bearingless, caringless, in the blessed yes of it? And while you are gloriously lost and still reeling in the wake of that feeling, some well-meaning killjoy comes to you and asks you, "So, kid, what are you going to do with your life? What will you do for work? How will you earn? Will you learn a trade, kid? Will you matriculate into college? Will you choose one or none or both of those options? Come on, kid. The bus is leaving, kid. Got to make some decisions, kid. If you don't want to be lost or left behind, you'd better be quick. Better hop on and do like we did, kid." So you make your choice. And we give you a small part of the world to carry, along with some instructions. Hurry up. Don't slow down. Don't mess around. Don't dilly, don't dally, don't dawdle, don't bobble, don't wobble, don't tarry. And after decades of doing so, sometimes you might find that in between those heaving breaths and lifted loads, you've carried down those well-worn roads, a knowing finds you. And you begin to find that sometimes, through older, slightly blurred eyes, you have achieved a sharper vision, the beginning or evolution of some species of wisdom, a wisdom revealing a lost truth that you sensed in your youth. But by then, you will know without doubt that there were always only a few things really worth giving 1/10 of an inch of a damn about. A sense of being found and flowered open by love. A hand reaching for yours when you are lost, when the hydra-headed darkness that makes you tremble and sway. A long-needed, much too short cry, and laugh with those who've walked with you along the way. Just a little more poetry, and the blessed thought of doing it again for one more day. Just one more day. Thank you.
I can't think of anything better than an afternoon of poetry. And next up, Sophia Muhammad.
So first off, good evening, everybody. So I go to a school where we have a policy of no phones at all on a person. And everybody has their own feelings about it. Some just wanted to have it. But for me, I have it I want to be able to have my phone on me due to fear. And there are many other schools out there that follow the same policy of no students should have their phones on their person. So this message is not just to my school in particular, but to schools all across America in general. It is called The Last Text. I love you, Mama, is the last text I dread to send to my mama. However, I don't think I'll be able to when that time comes. Constant worry is something I've grown accustomed to. The constant worry is not what you may think it is. My constant worry isn't deadlines, bus stops, or school lunch, yet it has to do with the fear of never seeing anyone from my family or friends again. I fear for my chained life in these so-called free streets and soil, burying that fear so I can learn something to pass a test that distracts me that at some random moment my sisters could die. I pray for them every minute of the day, but even now that's risky, as I cannot risk losing focus on school. School does not stop when your heart does. They always tell you to focus on your work, to focus on your studies, to focus. How can I focus on algebra when I'm already calculating the fastest route to get my ass out of school? Excuse me. They say be focused, yet I am focused on what I need to do to ensure I am safe, ensure that my sisters are safe, ensure that my friends are safe, when that was supposed to be the last thing on my mind. I'll continue working, because Lord knows what will happen if you stop for even a second. But maybe we can also choose, if this day comes, to give our children the chance to send the last text. My last one is called The World for Woman. The world for woman is complicated. We are told to do so many things, yet at the same time we are told not to. We are told to stand back from the spotlight because we are supposed to be a jewel towards men, yet we are supposed to stand out because we are supposed to be independent. We are supposed to cover up our skin because it is bad to show your shoulders. Yeah, as soon as you walk past that door, as soon as you walk into the room with your husband, take off everything. You are supposed to be his jewel, not your own. You are supposed to show up, yet not. You're supposed to be intellectual, yet stupid. You're supposed to be you, yet not you at the same time. You're supposed to show up as your best self, but if your best self isn't the one that you can face your camera with, that is not you. That is not the one that you are supposed to be. That is supposed to be the person that you have to be. The person you have to be is kind and clear, have clear skin, yet no acne. You are supposed to be calm, collected, smile when you see the camera, yet don't cry. Don't cry about your worries. Don't cry if you are scared. Don't cry if you feel as if the world is unfair. Don't say that. Don't say it is unfair, because who are you to say that it is? You have no voice. You have no sense of self. You are merely a woman. Who are you to say that you have nothing when I try to give you everything? You have given me nothing to build off of. Yet I try my best to build off of myself. Thank you.
That's it?
That's what I'm saying. Okay, well, thank you for another afternoon of poetry. We will do this again in 3 weeks, 4 weeks. It's the third Saturday of every month. Please join us. We look forward to seeing you.